Hey guys, what's up? So this video is going to be raw. It is going to be something that is fresh, vulnerable, just happened to me, and it's going to be called False Teachers, Energy Hooks, and Spiritual Ego, the Final Frontier of the Spiritual Awakening. So throughout my entire spiritual journey, I've always put truth as my North Star. And truth leads to the same place as enlightenment, as liberation, as self-realization, as love. Truth unlocks all problems, but I haven't always had clear truth. I even went and bought a sword, like a sword from the movie Braveheart. You can't take my freedom. That's it's like a real sword. If I edited my videos, I'd put it in here, but I don't edit these, so that's probably why you guys hear me mess up all the time. But my point is that I bought a sword. It was like the symbol. It's in my logo. Truth is what has gotten me as far as it has. And that sword metaphorically gets sharper and sharper as I learn to wield it, to use it, to cut through things that aren't true. And there's almost everything I've grasped a hold of on my journey has become false, because everything in the ego world is technically false. So as I go, it's like you extrapolate from the teachers what you need, and then you realize, holy shit, they aren't what they said they were, and then you move along. And that's the same thing with concepts. And this is, you've heard me talk about spiritual eddies in the river, where a teacher puts down their flag and says, come over here and let me teach you. And then you get stuck. Sometimes it's 10 days, sometimes it's 10 lifetimes. It just depends, right? How long you're stuck there. So what's important here is to continue to swing your sword of truth, and to continue to question what your beliefs are, and to be okay with being wrong. So now I'm going to give you a couple of examples of how that's happened for me. So in the last year and a half, I've came across two false spiritual teachers. And I've actually got some notes on this one, because there's some things that I want to tell you guys about that are pretty deep, and I can't necessarily memorize them all. But essentially, one of them, I just figured this out yesterday, and I guess I'll tell you guys like how I knew this. That might be the first thing I'll go into. Let me see if I can get that light out of the way. There we go. Okay, this is a vulnerable share. So I was on the call, and I was talking about my process, and my path to truth is very strong. And I saw this person look at me, and there was a moment. This is just a knowingness, guys. There was a moment when he looked at me and he realized that I was a threat to his whole game, because he realized that I was going to go all the way. And I know that sounds, whatever it sounds, I don't care. This is my truth. And the same exact thing happened with the other teacher. And they went from being very loving, like, wanting things from, or giving to me like falsely. I didn't see it in the beginning, but they were falsely like placating me, I guess is the right word, to all of a sudden they looked at me and they saw that I wasn't buying it and that I knew, and immediately they both flipped, and they went from being, oh my gosh, you're amazing, to just like seeing me as like a complete threat. And I watched this guy's eyes go, like he saw me, and it's like this moment. And that's the thing with intuition, guys. A lot of people have trouble, including myself, but I've learned this is sharpening the sword of truth. People have trouble knowing whether it's the truth, like their intuition, or it's their ego mind. And the best way, besides practice and sharpening that sword and just getting better and better and making mistakes and realizing you got to get out of the eddy and move on, besides that, is intuition is always instantaneous. It's like, bam, it's right there. And as soon as it hits, your ego mind grabs it and says, well, you don't know for sure. So if you can learn to instantaneously get what you receive and know, because right then my mind grabbed it and was like, well, maybe he's just the death of my ego, and my ego doesn't want to deal with this. And so I started going through all that, and I asked for some other signs, and I got them very, 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 very clearly. So without question. So what's going on in this world is very interesting. People are actually, and this is part of, stick around till the end and I'll explain to you like what's happening personally with me as well, because this is going to get really personal. First, I see it in these other people, and then I started to see it in myself. So what people are doing is they're actually harvesting other people's energy. And I know that sounds crazy, but that's the transactional way of this world. And I pulled up quite a few quotes on this from masters so you guys could understand this. And I was looking at, why would someone do this, right? Like, why are they doing this? And what happens is they get addicted to the high of being the source. Once someone taps into acidic energies or a field, they start feeling the adoration, the devotion, the buzz of students softening and surrendering around them. And if they haven't fully purified the ego, they start to think, I'm the reason they feel this. I'm needed. I'm important. That feeling of being the source is addictive, and it becomes its own identity. It is the spiritual version of a narcissistic supply loop. So obviously I couldn't memorize that, and it was said so well that I just wanted to read it to you guys. And that's why when you get on these, like, how can you tell that they're doing this? You can actually feel it. Let's see here. You feel high or blissful in their presence. And that's why I thought, I'm not going to list the names of these teachers, by the way, just because, number one, I know that resistance is what feeds them. And number two, like, I'm not letting them in my field like that. I'm dismissed. I'm done. So maybe if you guys work with me one-on-one or know me personally, I would share it with you just so you can avoid the trap, but I'm not going to put it out there on YouTube. So what happens, especially with this most recent teacher, actually with both of them, you feel high or blissful in their presence. It's like they have a Buddha field, but dull and confused after. You feel compelled to return, even if you know you have that subtle knowingness that something isn't right. You can't fully think clearly while around them, and your will weakens. You feel like your energy is leaking and they're glowing more. That's not a transmission, that's energetic consumption. And guys, with this last teacher especially, people would just get on to talk to him and they would just go silent, like they would just be like, ah. And these people, both of these last two teachers, they did develop pretty good powers. And which spiritual cities are, it's SIDDHI. You can actually develop, you can get to certain points in your evolution to self-realization, and you can stop. And this is what I've talked about before. There's all kinds of dark ways off the pathway that you can take. And I want to talk about it based on Tibetan Buddhism, which is Dzogchen. An impure Lama may cause the student's essence to leak while empowering his own charisma. So that's from the words of a perfect teacher. And then in Hindu Tantra, the yogi may become intoxicated by his own energy when he's on the pathway to self-realization and begin to enjoy the Shakti, the prana of others as his own. When this is done without their consent or conscious offering, it is a form of subtle violation. And that's exactly what was happening with both of these teachers. Swami Muktananda, who had an immense Shakti, was accused of exactly this. Women said they felt drained, confused, alters, and sometimes addicted to his field. So as you're on, this stuff is real, guys. I mean, hopefully you understand this. Like, it sounds crazy, but if you go deep on this field, you'll see it in self-realization. As you go along, there are all kinds of opportunities to stop and harvest and be a taker, to be service to self. And most people are service to self until they're enlightened. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. So Sri Aurobindo says, there is a zone which is neither the true spiritual realization nor the ordinary life of man, a borderland between the two in which one may have a number of experiences, visions, etc., which are spiritual in appearance but are not in essence. The danger is that one may mistake these things for true realization and stop short, not reaching the true spiritual consciousness. So they talk a lot about, as I was doing my research, about how people get trapped and they don't realize what they're doing. I don't buy that. I know that both of my teachers knew what they were doing. They chose, it's an easier path. It's no different than when we talked about the pathway to light and dark. You always have this option. Hey, you can stop here and you can start harvesting people's energy and you can make a whole bunch of money. That's essentially what it is. You want to stop now and you want to just get paid and feel really good and harvest other people's Shakti? That's exactly what they're doing. So here's a conversation between Ram Dass and Maharishi, because I don't want you guys to think that, I mean, this is like what happens. It's not just my opinion. Ram Dass once asked Maharaji, I say his name wrong all the time, excuse me, about American teachers who were starting to develop followings and powers but seemed a bit off. You guys ever felt that? Maharaji, what about these teachers in the West who seem powerful, but I feel something's wrong? And his answer was plainly, they are eating their students. That's his answer verbatim. So I discovered that, and I went back on to the call today. This is what I did both times, actually. With the other teacher, I went back on after I had this knowingness, and I couldn't deny it. And one of the things that has hurt me the most on my pathway, guys, is denying my own truth. I think that's probably the most harmful thing you can do to yourself, is deny your own knowingness. And essentially that's what people are doing when they get stuck in the ego mind and materialism and in identity and vanity, and they're denying like that clarion call within. And if you choose to follow that, it is painful as this stuff comes off, but it is the only path that's worth traveling. So I couldn't deny my truth. I saw it, and so what I did was I went back on one last time. And actually, I'll be honest with you. So this is probably going to sound crazy, but I got to tell my truth. So what I did is I have the ability to see and do a lot of stuff in the metaphysical, and I'm reluctant to share this, but it's true. So I was able to like close my eyes and go and like zap these guys with light. Sorry if this sounds crazy, but in both cases, when they came back on the next day, they were sick, they were mad. You could totally see the effects of it. And once this guy today saw me again, he immediately got into this really bad mood. And the first person that came up, he yelled at them. He didn't yell at them, but he said, "Sit down, you're disrespecting me for being silent." And I'm like, I've seen what I need to see. I'm out of here. So that's just the truth, guys. You can actually feel these people. And it's pretty, it's actually very disgusting. Okay, hold on a second. So now I'm going to take it personal, because when I started looking at that, I'm like, okay, so these guys are basically sending out energy to receive it back, and they're basically harvesting other people's energy. And then I started to look, with self-truth being my guiding light, I started looking at it, and I started to realize that I was doing it as well, which is hard to admit, but it's the truth. So I was helping someone close to me, and this is really hard. Let's see. All right, reframe. So I was helping someone close to me, and I realized that she really wasn't giving back. She wasn't like it's like when you have, I've used the analogy before of you're climbing Mount Everest, and you've got your business partner, your life partner, whatever it is, and Mount Everest is maybe self-realization, or maybe whatever it is in your life. Maybe you're trying to build a business, maybe you're trying to create a family, whatever that mountain is. And you go up the mountain, and the person falls, you get a third of the way up, and the person falls down to the base. And you're like, okay, you go back down to the base. You're like, remember, you have to use your pickaxe, you have to do your foot setting just right. We talked about this, you learned about this in training. Just remember to have your pickaxe put in correctly, or whatever it is. It's just an example. So you go up again, and they fall again down to the base. Okay, you go back down, you're like, okay, you did it again. So are you going to rise this time? My point is that if the person continues to fall to the base, at some point you have to draw a boundary, right? And if they fall all the way down, but there's 10 feet above the base, then they're making progress. And that's where my boundary is. Like, if people actually are moving, then I work with them. But the other thing is like this reciprocity where you want something back in return. And I started looking at that. I'm like, is that the same thing that these other guys were doing? And so I recognized that I wasn't just helping. I was subconsciously asking, do you see me? Do you value me? Do you understand what I gave you? It's like this it's a conditional love, right? That's when I realized that this was transactional. It was the same subtle hook I saw in the teachers. This is how real I get with myself, guys. Like, I'm vulnerable and I'm freaking sharing it on YouTube. Why? Because I want you to see this within yourself as well. And I know that's hard. And what'll probably happen is this will plant the seed. And then one day down the road, you may be able to look at it. Maybe you can look at it right now if you're strong enough. I also felt this in my videos, the energetic distortion, that little twist in my stomach that says, will they receive this? Will they recognize this? So I'm making transmissions wanting something in return. And what the modern Dzogchen commentary says is that the world is built on unconscious barter. So what I mean by that is, or what they mean by that, and what I'm saying is, this is the way everything works in the ego world. And that's why everybody suffers, because everybody is trying to get something. Their intention is not as true as it seems. They're saying they're trying to help, but they're really trying to get something in return. So they give you something, wanting something. And what this causes is a lot of pain. And that's what I'm going to go into a little bit more right here. So there is one subtle point here though, and it goes back to the climbing the Himalayan mountain. We don't require reciprocation to give, but we also don't have to continue giving when it isn't received. So just because you're giving freely and you don't require anything back, but if you find out that nothing's coming back over time, that's when you can draw a boundary. Boundaries are not demands, they're clarity. They protect the purity of your field. When someone repeatedly can't or won't receive what you're offering, it is clean to stop offering. Not with anger, but with sovereignty, right? So it's not about giving freely forever. It's about giving with not expecting anything in return, and then being willing to draw your boundaries if it doesn't work, right? So when this insight came to me, I had a massive roar. Like I have been letting go of so much stuff. If I tell you guys about it, but my pillows on my couch are just covered in tears, man. I mean, it's crazy. It's sad, but it's not sad tears. They're actually tears of like release. And I've been working so hard to get down to the roots of what it is. And this one that I found today was huge. I had this insight. I give not to be seen, not to be received, but because it's what flows, because I am that. I am already full. Like this whole idea that we have to receive something back, it's a hook. And then I started looking at this hook. After I had this huge roar, it was like 45 minutes long. I let it go, and I'm just basically purifying myself. Then I started looking at these hooks, and I realized there's this book by Annie Besant that you guys might want to check out. It's called Thought Forms. And I've told you before that actual thoughts have energetic fields. Like they actually, for people that are clairvoyant, they can see thought forms. And these thought forms are where abstract art came from. And if you go into that book that Annie Besant has, she shows you the different thought forms and what they look like. Anger is red and has certain shapes. And the interesting thing is like jealousy and anything with a hook, jealousy is a hook. It actually has a hook in the thought form. So it's going out and trying to pull back. This is like phenomenally interesting. So I studied that a long time ago, and I realized that these guys are putting out energy that has hooks. It's trying to bring things back. This is the metaphysics of the world, guys, and it's real. People can see this. Go read that book. Annie Besant is a great author, by the way. Every time I saw external validation, I was feeding the matrix. So the desire for reciprocity is the very trap that withholds us from source. Because what's happening is we are seeking external validation, and we're allowing, when it comes back to us, we're open to receive that energy from other people, which is basically the thought form of the matrix just spinning around. And that's what creates the actual matrix. I don't know if I'm doing a good job explaining this, but in her work, thought forms like jealousy and manipulation aren't just symbolic. They have literal hooks, curved, grabbing appendages that seek out energetic connections. Even though what I felt wasn't jealousy, it was the same structure, a reach, a tether, a subconscious expectation. By putting those hooks out, I wasn't just inviting matrix energy in, I was opening my own receptors to absorb it. Very, very interesting. The matrix doesn't just live in the system, it lives in hooks, in open receptors, and in energetic expectations. So these thought forms that everybody's exchanging is actually, the matrix is a live collective consciousness. And people are like, what is the matrix? The matrix is your ego mind combined with everybody else's ego mind, making you decide that you need to buy certain things, look a certain way, talk a certain way. That's the matrix. It's all through thought forms in one collective. Like, you can have your own thought forms, and then there's a collective consciousness as well that literally you get infected with. How do you get infected with it? A person talks to you, you look at an ad, you turn on a movie, you turn on Instagram, you turn on Facebook. Guys, that's the matrix. It's crazy when you think about it. So then I started looking at this and I'm like, okay, so what about the analogy of direct current versus alternate current? Because direct current in electricity is just going one way. Alternate current is going out and coming back, going out and coming back. And Tesla actually invented it. It's a much more efficient way to do energy. But I was looking at this and I was explaining this to ChatGPT, and she comes back and she's like, this is the difference between direct current and alternate current. Reciprocation requires a return loop and feeds the ego. It feeds karma. And the whole idea of the path is to get rid of karma. Like, that is self-realization, is to let go of attachment and to let go of karma. Karma is attachment. Like, if you're attached to how anything needs to be, if you're resisting anything, if anything closes you up, then you are still in karmic debt to that. And that's one of the reasons why I'm not sharing the teachers' names, because I don't want to resist them. I've actually sent them love and I've closed the chapter. I don't need to go out and say, hey, watch out for this guy, watch out for these people. There's other systems that take care of that in the world. It doesn't have to be me. So, but direct current is one way, one will, one truth. No reversal, no pullback, no expectation, just pure transmission. When you realize who you truly are, you know you don't need anything external. So then I started thinking about it. I'm like, wow, okay. I don't know if this hits for you guys. I'm imagining it's going to hit for people that are pretty far on the path, but maybe it's going to light a spark within you so you can start to see how much you need to purify where you're coming from and purify your intentions. If you want to go all the way, if you want to do this work and at least start the pathway. Then I remembered that this was also in the Bhagavad Gita. So I pulled up the quote from the Bhagavad Gita, and it says, you have the right to action, but never to the fruits of action. And that was one of the very first spiritual texts I ever read, and I loved it. So I started reading that a long time ago. I don't know, it was probably 15, 20 years ago. And I've always clung to that quote, but I've also had this knowingness that I never really understood it, because how do you purify yourself to the point, when you start this purification process, you can't even see the fact that you have energetic hooks. You can't even see the fact that you're asking for something back. You're still hidden behind the justification of the ego mind, like, I'm helping, I'm giving, I'm trying, and everybody's doing it. So this goes, you have to be able to go through the karmic levels to see this. So, and what this is karma yoga. The moment we seek reciprocation, we reattach to the wheel of karma. The spiritual path is to burn karma, not accrue more. Krishna said to Arjuna on the battlefield, act without desire, without fear. The clean warrior does what is dharma, not for reward, but because it is right. So, I don't know if this is going to be received well or not. That's okay, but I have to speak my truth, and that's what I learned today. So what I'm here to do is just speak as a conduit through me what my truth is, and stop with the idea of being that's why I don't do edits. That's why I don't try to sound a certain way. The only reason I used a script today is because I wanted to get those quotes in there for you. I did actually use ChatGPT to create a sovereignty vow, so I'm going to read that to you guys now. I now close the receptors that once longed to be filled. No more reaching, no more waiting, no more silent hunger. I no longer barter with my truth for validation. I no longer shape myself to be received. I give because I am full. I love because I am love. I speak because the current moves. I do not pull. I do not expect. I do not hook. I am a sealed vessel. I am a sovereign field. I am the flame that gives without smoke. From this field I offer truth, not to be seen, but because it is what I am. This is my vow, this is my throne, this is my freedom. maybe you guys can understand the depth of this. I realize it is pretty metaphysical and it is pretty high level. There's also another lecture that Michael Singer does on intention, and he goes through all the different levels of intention, and at the very end he says the highest form of intention is no intention. And that's exactly what we're talking about here. That's exactly what it says in the Bhagavad Gita. And that is exactly the difference between what I was doing and what you're probably doing, if you're being honest, and what everybody else is doing, is we haven't developed massive power. But these two teachers that I had to move out of my life or move out of my energy field had developed power. They had gone up the spiritual pathway, and they had developed these abilities, these cities to draw energy and to manipulate, and they chose to manipulate. And so I vow before you guys that I will never do that. Like, I don't know how far I'll get, but if I do reach those points of power, I am going to the end, and I'm going to the pureness, and I'm going for the open heart. And it's funny because they hide behind heart and love too. It's so far from true. So if you made it this far, thank you. This message is not about like blame. It's about love and having clarity. I'm definitely learning. I'm shedding, and you guys are watching me shed. You're watching me change every single day. You're watching layers of me fall off on this couch over here. It's crazy. What I've learned is we can't purify the world until we purify the field that we transmit from. And this goes back to that message I got, 8 years ago, something like that, when I was like, why isn't this working? And Source just told me, purify yourself. I'm like, what the hell does that mean? And now I'm finally finding out what it means, and I'm sharing it with you. No more open hooks, no more silent trades, just presence, just power. Just you, fully seated in your sovereignty. Now go and give from that place, and don't look back. Be free.